Welcome, everyone. Take a moment to kind of look around, see who's here tonight. Y'all can do the same thing on the Zoom. Um, get going here. Wow. I'm Clyde, one of the Dharma leaders here at IMC Charlotte. Last week, we had a great experience with the monks, and I want to say thank you to Joy and Elaine and all the people, all our Sangha members that worked really hard to make this happen. And one of the things that came up at the talk was this idea of karma. And I like talking about karma, and I had planned on talking about karma this week anyway. But one of the things that came up was that I got the impression sometimes karma is kind of misunderstood, and it's kind of like this heavy thing. And what do we do with it, and how do we work with it, and everything. And during this time, also, I had been reading the book by Guy Armstrong on emptiness, which has to do more with this idea of impersonal and the impersonal nature of things, not self. But he also talks a lot about karma. And in there, he talks about, he has a section that he says that karma can lead to happiness. So I want to look tonight on looking at karma from a different way. How does karma lead to happiness? And so so a lot of some of the stuff I'm pulling comes from Guy's book, but it starts out the Dhammapada, which is one of the books in the Pali Canon. It's a real small book. The very first verse, and I know a lot of you have heard this before. It says, "Mind is the forerunner of all things. Mind is chief. Speak and act with impure mind, and sorrow will follow you, as the wheel of a cart follows the ox. Mind is the forerunner of all things. Mind is chief. Speak and act with a pure mind, and happiness will follow you like your shadow, unshakable." Now, I've read this verse several times, and I think Larry did a talk on this one time, and I never made this connection. But there's a couple of things in here. It says, "Speak and act with an impure mind, and sorrow will follow you. Speak and act with a pure mind, and happiness will follow you." That right there is the law of karma. The very first thing is the law of karma. Because karma translates, karma is the Sanskrit word, translate as action. Speak and act. That's action. That's action. Also, if you go to the Noble Eightfold Path, the first thing is right view. And mundane right view is the law of karma. So this thing of action. So it's right there. Speak and act with a pure mind or an impure mind. And so we're going to be looking at that. We're going to look at what it is. What's this idea of an impure and a pure mind? Some context around karma, and then how do we work with it? How does it lead to our happiness? How can we work with it? And there's one of the very important parts about karma, because karma is action. The Buddha said, "It is volition that I call karma, for having willed, one acts by body, speech, or mind." And this was one of the big insights that the Buddha had that he brought, that it's not just the act and then the karmic consequences. It's this idea of volition that gives rise to the act. He said that Guy Armstrong says this force of volition can also be called intention, urge, impulse, motivation, or motive. He said that a wholesome volition is one that is rooted in greed, hatred, and delusion. That's the three defilements. While a wholesome volition is rooted in their opposites, renunciation, loving kindness, and wisdom. Here's the key teaching. This is what Guy says. Actions done from a wholesome intention give rise to future results that are wished for, desired, agreeable. That sounds like happiness to me. While acts done from an unwholesome intention give rise to future results that are not wished for, undesired, disagreeable. This connection between intention and results is what is generally known as the law of karma. Put simply, good intentions give rise to good results, bad intentions give rise to bad results. So if you walk away from anything tonight's talk, intention, the power of intention, the importance of intention. The Abhidhamma, which is another book in the Pali Canon, considers volition to be a universal factor, which means it is present in every moment of conscious experience. What we intend is constantly changing, but the factor of will is always present in some form. Every moment there's this idea of this force of intention, whether we standing up, sitting down, eating, talking, thoughts, there's this volition is here and it's happening. So it's very important that we pay attention to that. Arising over and over, because it's impermanent, the karmic significance of an act has to do with the wholesome or unwholesome mental factors that form the volition behind the act. So let's look real quick. Let's look now. We talk about this idea of an impure mind and a pure mind, or these acts they talk about. And the Buddha describes, these are broad topics, but there's really, there's bodily action, verbal action, and mental action. There's three bodily action: destroying life, taking what is not given, wrong conduct in regard to sense pleasures. These are all unwholesome. The verbal actions, unwholesome, are false speech, slanderous speech, harsh speech, idle chatter. Then there's the mental actions, and those is greed, ill will, and wrong view. And the root of all these are greed, hatred, and delusion, the three defilements. So what are the wholesome acts? The wholesome acts are really for the body, for the bodily and the verbal action, we're just abstaining from those. We're not doing false speech, we're not taking what is not given. And then the mental actions, the greed, ill will, and wrong view, is being free from these. We want to work so we're not acting out of greed, we're not acting out of ill will. So a lot of that is this insight. So what's the roots of these wholesome intentions? Non-greed, which is renunciation, detachment, generosity. Non-aversion, loving kindness, sympathy, and gentleness. And non-delusion, which is wisdom, which is really insight and seeing the way things are. So these are unwholesome actions, and these are the wholesome actions that we have to work with. So we've got this idea here. So our happiness depends on this intention. If our intention is greed, we're going to have unhappy results. If our intention is loving kindness, we're going to have positive or happy results. So it's real important that we know what this intention is. But before I get into, some of the things we do around that, I want to put this into context a little bit. And this is something we kind of forget about when it comes around karma. That karma is really one of 5 laws operating. Because we put so much on karma. This happens to karma, this person's doing this. The Buddha taught that there are 5 types of factor at work in the cosmos that cause changes to happen. And these are the 5 niyamas. And the 5 of them. One is the natural law of non-living matter. This natural law orders the change of seasons and phenomena related to climate and the weather. It explains the nature of heat and fire, soil and gases, wind and water. Most natural disasters, such as floods and earthquakes, would be governed by this law of nature, of non-living matter. So this law is operating. Another law is the law of living matter. We think of that as biology. Seeds, germs, so it's going to be sickness in there too. This biology, flowers, fruits, plant life, law of genetics can apply to that. I'm born with certain genetic features that happen, and certain eyes or certain type of abilities and things. This is all genetically based. That's the law of living matter. There's the law. The other ones are there's the law of karma, which is what we're going to talk about. That's a natural tendency for skillful actions to create beneficial effects and unskillful actions to create harmful or painful effects. The fourth one is what they call dharma. And we've talked dharma in here is the teaching of the Buddha. It could be everything. But here they're talking about this spiritual law. And what we kind of look at it from around here are these factors of existence, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and personal nature of things. The not self. So this is kind of like our nature of reality. How is it really like? The fifth one is called sita, the heart or the mind. And the sita, they're not separate. It's the same. The heart and the mind are the same. And this one's a little bit, this concerns consciousness, thoughts, perceptions. It's kind of like psychology. So that's operating also. So that's what we need to import, that this is in the context. If I get, caught in an earthquake somewhere, it's not necessarily my personal karma that's caused that to happen. There's the law of nature happening. And the one thing that's noticeable about these five Nikayas are that there's one I can work with, and that's the law of karma. I can't really control my genetics too much. We can do a few things about that. I can't control nature, earthquakes and things, fires, and whether, I know if I plant a pear seed, hopefully I'm going to get a pear tree, I'm going to get an apple tree. I can work with those, but I can't change them a whole lot. But we can work with the law of karma. Additionally, about karma, put it in context, this idea of karma is that we don't know when we're going to see the results of karma. It could be immediately, like I do something out of loving kindness and I get a response back. It may be months, it may be years, it may be lifetimes. So we just don't know when we're going to see the results. And that's also with bad karma too. If I do something, did I get away with it? Well, if nothing happened right there, I think I got away with it. Well, maybe not. We don't know. Guy Armstrong, and then there's this other thing. I love the way he puts this. Well, let me do it this way. He said that, well, he didn't say, I'm going to do something else first. It also, if you try to figure out the law of karma and the pattern and what's happening, we talk a lot, about, well, this person did something in their past life, so therefore they're suffering now, and that caused this, or this happened. Well, there's a lot of forces going on. We just went over these 5 different laws that were going on all at the same time, and they're rising and passing away and happening. And so the Buddha said that if you do this is one of the 4 imponderables. And what he meant by that is that if you try to figure it out, it's going to lead you to madness and vexation. So we can't figure out what caused this to happen. We don't know what's going to happen because people try to figure out, well, I must have been a bad person in bad life, so that's what's happening. Now, we don't know. All these things are happening. Guy Armstrong, he's got a good way of presenting this. He says it's called the rear view mirror use of karma. Trying to figure things out. Let's look in the rearview mirror and see what happens so I can figure out what's going on. And he says this is not useful. It's not wholesome. It's not going to lead to happiness. And you can't do it anyway because the Buddha said you just can't figure it out. He saw a lot the night that Buddha was awakened. He saw a lot of what happened, but we're not there. We can't do that. And we're going to drive ourselves crazy trying to figure it out. Another thing in the context of this, that karma is not a cosmic system of reward and punishment. This thing of karma is going to get you type thing. It's a natural law. We want to work with it just like we do gravity. We want to work with it. Gravity does it In most cases, gravity's pretty impartial. And if we all got up and jumped off the top of this building, I don't know there's any of us going to float out and run around. You know, we're all it's going to happen. So we want to know that that's what I'm saying is it's not, you know, we act within the law of karma. If I act with unwholesome and I cause suffering for myself, I'm going to cause suffering for myself and others. We act within that law. So that kind of puts the context, you know, it's not, you know, not everything is karma. There's other things going on and we have to be aware of that. So let's look now. We understand this law of karma is there. How does it lead to our happiness? How do we work with karma to lead to our happiness? Because we kind of looked at that, but now we want to say, well, how do I use this? What do I do with it? Well, the Buddha actually described 4 types of karma. He said there was dark karma that resulted with dark results, bright karma with bright results, dark and bright karma with dark and bright results, and then karma that is neither dark nor light and leads to destruction of karma. Okay. So what is dark karma? We kind of know what dark karma is. We've been talking about that in here. That's killing living beings, taking was not given, sexual misconduct, false speech, indulging in intoxications. That's kind of the precepts we take when we go on retreat. This is the volition behind that is greed, hatred, and delusion. And that leads to suffering or unhappiness. Bright karma. Bright karma is abstaining from those actions that I just talked about. And Guy Armstrong adds to that generosity, virtue, and loving kindness. So we're acting on these wholesome intentions. This is bright karma. And that's one we can work with. That's bright karma. That's going to lead to beneficial results. That's going to lead to happiness. We can do that now. That's that bright karma. The dark karma, the dark and bright karma is, that's a mix of ethical and unethical behavior. The example he says in here is that stealing for the benefit of someone in need. So I've stolen, I've taken what's not given, but I've helped someone else. And so they kind of balance each other out a little bit. Could be closer to home, could be maybe I gave some money to someone, but I did, though I did this, they got some benefit out of that, but I did it to show off or something. So I kind of negated the benefit, the dark karma I got from that because I did a lot of selfing around that. I created that self around that. So what is this fourth one? What is the karma that is neither dark nor bright, with neither dark nor bright results? Karma that leads to the destruction of karma. That's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. That is the Noble Eightfold Path. And that really leads to our long-term happiness. As we practice, as we walk along the path, this is our long-term happiness. This is going to help lead us to happiness, and it's going to lead us to the destruction of karma, because we get to the point where we don't want to be creating more karma. But that's way down the road. But we can work with that, but we can work with this bright karma right now. We can work with that right now to lead to our happiness. And how do we do that? How do we work with that? Well, it's pretty obvious that we want to act out of wholesome intentions. What are my wholesome intentions? We want to live by the 5 precepts. We don't want to take what is not given. We don't want to use incorrect speech. We want to have these ethical standards, this sila. We want to live out of that. That's the starting point. We do it through our meditation and mindfulness practice, what we're doing in here. We do this because what we're doing one of the things we do when we meditate is we're seeing what's arising. In our mindfulness, when we're meditation, we're seeing what's arising on the cushion. In our meditation practice, our mindfulness practice, we see what's arising kind of off the cushion. What are we looking for? We're looking to say, what is that intention? Am I acting out of anger? And am I acting out of ill will? And am I acting out of greed? And am I acting out of selfing versus generosity versus loving kindness versus compassion? Because what? Intention is what causes that karmic impact. And if I'm ignorant of that intention, I'm going to continue to produce unhappy results. So we meditate, and if you go back to the Dhammapada, it says with an impure mind or pure mind. This meditation practice is what we're doing. We are purifying the mind. So we can see these underlying defilements and not reacting out of. And the less we react out of them, the less they will begin to arise. We can do this through right effort, the sixth step on the Noble Eightfold Path, which has to do with with being aware of unwholesome actions, getting rid of them, and cultivating, trying to bring up wholesome actions and cultivating wholesome actions. We can do this through developing the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness practice, our compassion practice, being sympathetic joy, developing equanimity. These are all positive, wholesome mental states that we want to be able to act out of because those intentions are wholesome. You could add generosity to that also, forgiveness, some of these other ones that we can act out of those. So there's a lot of things we can do now to be sure that we notice that intention that's going to lead us to happiness, these actions that can lead to happiness. So we're aware of this. We want to be aware of the law of nature, law of karma, the law of karma. We want to work to cultivate this pure mind. That's through our meditation practice. We want to be aware of volition or intention behind each of our actions. And these actions are mental actions also. What's that thought? What's that intention behind that thought? We want to act in accordance with the law of karma so that it will lead to our happiness. Guy Armstrong kind of sums it up like this. Seen in this light, karma becomes our best friend because it shows us the way out of to happiness. Actions become our friend and our refuge because they can lead us out of suffering. This is not a one-time effort nor insight that affects a great shift from misery to lasting happiness all of a sudden. Rather, this is the moment by moment path of practice that we will work through throughout our lifetime. In each moment, we try to find the most wholesome state possible and let volition and action come from that. And as Larry talked about in his talk a couple of weeks ago, this is really something that you can work with and that you can come and see for yourself. You may not see it happening right now, but does the working within the law of karma lead to your happiness? And only you can determine that. Thank you.